And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan coming to you from the National Weather Service in Alaska region, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Saturday, September 21st, 2024, and the outlook will be for Sunday into Monday. But we take a look at the extent of any sea ice. We still have some remnant ice along the Russian Arctic coastline along their side of the Bering Strait. Otherwise, the Chukchi Sea coastline to along the Beaufort Sea coastline of Alaska generally ice-free, and we've reached that time in the year where we're near the minimum ice extent. But we are going to start to see some colder air work its way southward as we head through early in the upcoming week due to a stronger area of low pressure over the Gulf. So this will allow some colder air to sink southward and perhaps also allow for some early season ice development. So on the weather map late tonight into Sunday morning, we've had one low weekend. A little piece of energy could still bring a little enhanced rain along the southern panhandle prior to daybreak, but otherwise this low will be the main weather maker as it works its way just south of the eastern Aleutians and rides on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula. It'll eventually move its way up into the western Gulf by the time we get in the late Sunday night and Monday. This system, though, does have gale force winds with some storm force gusts. And along this front there will also be some areas of moderate to locally heavy rain, and that'll all spread up along the Gulf Coast into the Panhandle with some heavier rainfall likely central southern Panhandle later Sunday night through Monday and on and off into Wednesday. 2 to 3 inch rainfall amounts will be possible each day here in that area of the Panhandle. So as much as 4 to 7 inches of rain could accumulate through Wednesday from the results of this system and some additional moisture coming in off of the North Pacific. So as we go into Monday, the low will be located east of Kodiak Island, southeast of the Kenai Peninsula. And on the backside, what's initially going to be more of a northeasterly offshore flow, winds are going to become more northerly, and this is going to draw down some colder air from the north along the west side of the state. And we'll see temperatures cool there, definitely give it a fall, more firmer fall chill to it. And looking at what we have in the marine forecast on Sunday, south winds 10 knots within Lynn Canal, 15 knots there within Stevens Passage, 20 knots Dixon Entrance, waves 2 to 3, as high as 3-4 feet there around Ketchikan, Metlakatla. The outer coast west winds 20 knots off of Craig, 7-foot waves, and then southeast winds 15 to 20 knots up the coast before becoming easterly 25-knot winds around Cape Suckling with waves there of 8 feet. On Monday, with the frontal system kind of right in this region, ahead of it, southeast winds may gust to 35-knot gales, not just Dixon Entrance, but up across Stevens Passage with 4 5-foot waves, and south winds to 20 knots here, Lynn Canal, 3 4-foot waves. For the outer coast, southwest to south winds around 25 to even 35 knots as we get out toward Cape Suckling, winds being a little more easterly component, southeasterly winds outside of Yakutat Bay. And we're looking at swells of 12, 14 feet, as high as 16 feet up there on the north end of the Gulf there around Cape Suckling. For the northwestern Gulf on Sunday, as that front works its way up across Kodiak Island, the entrance of Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay, easterly 40-knot gales, 10, 11-foot waves. Up further north, northeasterly winds, 25 knots, upper Cook Inlet with 7-foot waves. Easterly winds, 20 knots, 4-foot waves within Prince William Sound, and outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance, east-southeast winds, 30 knots with 6-foot waves. And then come Monday, that area of low pressure sitting down just in this area, we're going to see east-northeast winds. Ahead of it, look, easterly winds to 25 knots outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance and up here in Prince William Sound. Waves out in the open areas of the Gulf, 10, 12 feet. Northeast to north winds, 25 to 30 knots, upper middle Cook Inlet off of Anchor Point, but turning west-northwest, 30 knots, lower Cook Inlet with waves upwards of 9 feet. On Sunday, across the Alaska Peninsula, all the way up in through Kodiak Island, we're looking at some pretty good gales of east to northeast, turning northerly as you get down toward Cold Bay and Falls Pass with that low circulation. 40-knot gales with gusts to 55 knots. We do have storm warnings here in this section, southwest of Akiak and east of Chiknik. Waves running 8 to 11 feet on the North Pacific side, 12 feet within Shelikof Strait, 9 to as high as 14 feet from outside of Bristol Bay down to north of Cold Bay. Come Monday, with the low situated up in this area is where the low center will be. Generally northwest winds 25 to 30 knots across Kodiak Island down across the Alaska Peninsula, with waves 7 to 9 feet on the North Pacific side and 7 to 10 feet on the Bering side. And across the Aleutians, winds on Sunday will generally be out of the north-northwest, upwards of 35 knots eastern Aleutians, including on Alaska, and then falling off 25 knots or so as you get from Nikolsky westward through and past Adak. And for Monday, winds will remain northwesterly over the eastern central Aleutians, highest here in the eastern part of the Aleutians, 25 to 30 knot northwesterly winds, falling off 2 or below 20 knots west of Nikolsky through Atka and Adak, and then becoming variable at 10 knots once you're out around Kiska and Shemya on Monday. Along the southwest and west coast, we have brisk northeasterly offshore flow, 35 knots out of Bristol Bay, 30 knot northeasterly winds out of Kuskokwim Bay and along out of Norton Sound and along the lower Yukon coastline, 25 knot northeasterly winds all the way down to St. Matthew, with 30 knot northeasterly winds in the vicinity of the Pribilovs, with waves upwards of 11 feet. Now on Monday, with that low taking a position more into the western Gulf, the flow becomes more northerly and then northwesterly as you get down along the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians, but northerly out of Bristol Bay, 25 knots, northwesterly 30 knots, Kuskokwim Bay, and then northwest winds 25 knots, St. Matthew down through the Pribilovs with 8 to 10 foot waves. And then within Norton Sound, this wider expanse between Nome and Imanik, and then off of the coast, north winds to 25 knots with waves generally running 5 feet. For the lower Chukchi Sea down through the Bering Strait and north side of St. Lawrence, we're looking at northeast to north winds 25 knots, waves generally running 4 to 6 feet. As we go up along the Arctic coast, east-northeast winds 15 to 20 knots. And on Monday, north-northeast winds 15 to 20 knots along the Arctic coast. Northeasterly 20 to 25 knots, Wainwright off of Point Hope, and then turning more northerly through the Bering Strait and increasing to 30 knots, drawing down that colder air, building some higher waves through the Bering Strait, 7 to 10 feet, including all the way down there through the north side of St. Lawrence.